Welcome to the Birth Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Hoff, BSN RN. I am a wife, a mother of two, and a nurse specializing in the care of women and newborns. In this podcast, we will share powerful journeys of birth givers with the goals of lifting the veil on the birth experience, healing through sharing, and beginning an open conversation to strengthen trust and promote transparency between birthing people and healthcare providers.
Hello. Today I have with me Amanda Kingsley. Amanda is the mother of three, a life and after abortion coach, and she is here today to share her birth journey with us. Amanda, welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I am in deep gratitude for anyone open to having these conversations in their platforms. It's a big deal.
Thank you. I have been looking for the perfect opportunity to add this topic to my platform. And I saw you on Instagram and I was like, abortion coach? Brilliant.
Or scary.
Or scary. There are a lot of ways that you can feel about that. I did dig deeper. And I love how in our pre-chat, you were talking about the distinction life and after abortion coach and making peace with your decisions and living the life that you deserve, that you chose. So yeah, I think that's super important. And I think that is something that kind of translates to all parts of life, but especially when making such a terrifying, difficult, life-altering decision that, you're going to have to sit with. It doesn't matter how you came to that choice. Things come up for you after. And just like with birth, things come up that you don't expect. Because you're just really, it's life-altering. And anytime you make a life-altering decision, lots of things come up for you.
Yeah.
So.
And we'll say, I'll just start here by saying there's a big spectrum of how this can land. For some people, it's not life-altering at all. It literally is just healthcare. They make a decision, they move on. There are people who make a decision, it's a procedure, they move on, and then they go to have kids, or they have a miscarriage later, or they have struggle with infertility, or they get a hysterectomy, or their kids move away for college. Like, there's many, many points that it can come back and be like, oh, okay, well, there's stuff here. So I do agree with you that it's life-altering. I don't think all people recognize that.
Yes.
And I'm positive there are people who never look back.
Yeah.
But it also can be like a thing where we don't realize that it's really impacted us until some other activation happens. And we're like, oh, look at that.
Yeah. Well, and additionally, I think the more I learn how trauma works in the body, the physical aspect of the procedure part of the abortion can come back. I mean, I feel like those are maybe the unicorns where there's just absolutely no effect.
Yeah.
I think what happens is you can't avoid the procedure. So if there's no emotional effect because you are so very confident in your decision and that that this is not part of your life, you're still going to have to go through the procedure. And the people that I know that have gone through that procedure are not always anticipating everything that goes into the procedure. And so, I mean, there's so many points, there's so many touch points where this could be a difficult emotional, physical challenge for people. And I don't know that that's recognized.
The unicorns, right? Like the people who never look back, like it just wasn't. I do have spiritual beliefs that I can't like not insert, which is just that we're here for some kind of life journey.
Right.
And can I swear?
Yeah.
Stuff happens. Shit happens. Like for us to learn from and grow from and explore. And so maybe the unicorns weren't meant to learn anything from abortion. It was just, they learned from other things. They learned from illnesses or car accidents or like businesses they started. Like it's just not, we don't know what people's stories are or why they're here.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the procedure, I'd say like for some people, there is some trauma in the procedure. For other people, it literally is what they say. It's like a period. And so, but I think beyond any trauma that happens from the procedure, just because something's happening to our body, there's also the trauma of like the system surrounding abortion, right?
Yeah.
Making the decision, calling the provider. How quick do I need to decide? Who am I allowed to talk? And by allowed, right? It's Who am I comfortable? Who am I allowed to talk to? Who's going to judge me? Who's not going to judge me? Like, the entire experience is one that a lot of people disassociate from to some degree because there's a speed at which it happens. So even if it's not the procedure that creates trauma, the entire experience has so many touch points that are just very unique and can be very intense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Well, so with every abortion story, there is so much more around it. And that's why this podcast is the Birth Journeys podcast, but all of the reproductive history plays into the birth journey and comes up at different points.
Really does.
So I'm interested in just your entire birth journey and how all of this played out, because I feel like there are definitely people out there that can relate, can feel validated and benefit from your story.
Yeah. I know I've told this on other podcasts and maybe in my own, but I'm like remembering a memory. So I was a birth doula before I moved into this work. So I remember learning that people's abortion histories could have an impact on their birth. And I was like, whoa, that's so interesting and important. And then I remember, and like, we haven't really outwardly said, like, I'm very pro-abortion. Like, we're not getting to any point where the story twists, which you wouldn't have me on if we were like just to say it out loud.
We're not trying to trick you into thinking that we think that this is bad. We're not trying to lead you down a path and then do a bait and switch here.
So I remember being trained as a birth doula and working with clients, learning that abortion could impact a birth experience and being like totally blown away by it. And then I remember being a new doula and like trying to talk to a client about their abortion, but it was almost as if like, if this comes up, it's okay. I'm a safe space, like very new, right? Like I just didn't have wisdom and experience to understand it. And I definitely didn't have personal experience to understand it. So there are certainly listeners who may have already had that experience or will have that experience where just it being like an experience of your womb, it can come back up. It can have later effects. When I learned that, like I said, I had children. So I had experienced birth, but I didn't have an abortion. And that is why I landed in this work, because it rocked me. Like it just showed me this big gaping hole that like I felt like no one's talking about this. No one's talking about the complexity. So I had already had 2 kids by then. So my reproductive health journey has been no unplanned pregnancies until 38, when I had this unplanned pregnancy that led to abortion. So I planned a child, had a child, planned a pregnancy, had a miscarriage, then planned a pregnancy, had a child, waited 6 years, planned a pregnancy, had a child. So I think that's really important because by the time I got to age 38, I had this illusion of control around yes, my body miscarried and that fell out of my control. But at the same time, I knew statistically, scientifically, that there was a good chance that I would miscarry. So I wasn't I was very sad about it, but I wasn't shocked by it. But when you get to 38 and you've been having sex for over 20 years and you've never had an unplanned pregnancy, it totally shook me. So it was the thing that brought me to this work. I've had a lot of reproductive experiences. So I had a planned home birth that I signed a lot of medical waivers for because I was 20 days past dates when she came. And that ended up being a hospital induction. So very interesting and transformative birth experience that included everything but a cesarean, an epidural, antibiotics, fevers, the tub, the narcotics, everything that was not a home birth except a cesarean. And then I decided to not plan a home birth because I had been through this previous experience, had a beautiful, natural, sunny side up really intense birth experience, but also very healing. Like I knew my body could deliver naturally. Beautiful. Then I had this third birth and pregnancy in which I spent 17 weeks on bed rest, on couch rest, planned home birth. But then I spent 17 weeks, nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. I was a mess. I had 2 kids. I couldn't even make them breakfast in the morning. They were 7. He was born in 2013. I'm always so bad at math here. 7 and 10. So they were like taking care of themselves. And obviously my husband was taking care of everything. Like maybe not obviously, but I have one. So they were just doing it all. I was on the couch, 17 weeks of bed rest, and then miraculously had a home birth.
Wow.
So that's a whole journey. Then I had this abortion experience, and I've since in the last year had a hysterectomy. So I've got like such a range of birth and uterine story, and it all matters, and like it all has made me who I am, including the abortion, probably most formatively the abortion. But like I've got a full spectrum. This body has done a lot.
Are you pregnant and planning a hospital birth? You don't need a birth plan. You need a birth vision. In my opinion, birth plans set you up for failure. Yep, I said it. Hear me out before you turn off this podcast. You may think that by downloading a generic birth plan, it means you're in control. The truth is, it's not that simple. No one can control exactly how their birth will go. There are way too many variables. What every pregnant person wants is to walk into the hospital pregnant and to walk out with a healthy newborn in their arms. The journey in between is the murky part. It's hard to know what issues might come up that need to be addressed. If you focus your energy on a birth vision rather than giving your power to a birth plan, you can empower yourself to make the best choices for you and your baby. That's why you need to get into my Empowered Hospital Birth program. As a labor nurse and mindset coach, I can help guide you through the process of maintaining the calm autonomy that will help you achieve the birth vision you desire. In my Empowered Hospital Birth program, I will help you identify the source of anxiety you have surrounding hospital birth, fill in knowledge gaps to make sure that you are fully informed and confident, learn key phrases so you can better communicate with your medical team, emotionally process your fears so that they don't hold power over you. Go to kellyhoff.com/empowered to book a free 30-minute private birth vision call, where we will identify your top fears and must-haves and gain clarity on exactly how you want to feel in the birth space. That's kellyhoff.com/empowered. I'm honored to be a part of your birth journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love you to walk through that with me, because I think some of the lessons that we learn in the entire reproductive journey, like you said, it makes you who you are. And I feel like there's so much, I don't always like to use the word fear, but I definitely think that's something that comes up, but just mystery surrounding all of this. And I think the more we talk about it and the more we normalize everybody's experience and what happened emotionally and physically for them and how they moved through that part of their life is so important. And different things are going to resonate with different people. And I feel like I wish that I had some more guidance in that. Even like with my birth, I was already an OB nurse with my first, but I still had trauma because I knew all the facts. I just didn't know how they were going to affect me. And so I think those stories are super important because we don't have that village where we're all in the tent, delivering the babies of our aunties, our sisters, our mothers. And we don't really get to see what to expect or hear what to expect, or really, it's not even something that we talk about in regular conversation at any great length. So if you're open to sharing, just like walk us through the whole thing if you have time.
Well, as you were talking, I was taking some notes because I was just like, I've thought about this a lot, but I've never written it all down. If I had to like very quickly summarize, I think In my first birth, the one that was a planned home birth, what I let go of at that stage in my own journey was like control. I wanted to control that experience so badly. I wanted it to be picture perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted all my family there with me. And like, we were going to prove how beautiful birth was and how healthy and wonderful it is to go through this together. And I had a total lack of control. I wasn't going into labor. I ended up just like everything kept working against me is what it felt like. But basically, I was not in control and that I was going to be okay anyway. Right? That feels like the lesson of that birth.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's the lesson of every birth. That you figured that out in your first is pretty remarkable.
Well, but like if I keep going, the miscarriage lesson was I'm human. I'm just an animal. And like statistically, it doesn't always work. It doesn't matter how much love I have or how much I want this. There were 5 of us, mommy friends, who were all pregnant at the same time. And I remember looking at all of us and being like, someone's not going to make it. Like,
wow. Yeah, that's so true.
And I like, sometimes I'm like, did I sacrifice myself? But of course, that's like giving me way more power than I think I learned I'm human. I'm just human. And it was different than losing control. It was just really like a biology lesson.
Well, the fact that you never had it to begin with. Because what control do we really have?
Yeah, it was just like, okay, well, this is just how it goes. And then with my third birth, the words I wrote down was like twist and adapt. Like I learned to twist and adapt, which is funny because she was facing the healthy direction when I went into labor. And she literally turned. Like she turned sunny side up, which is for those of us who know birth, it's sometimes kind of the opposite, right? Like they twist into the right direction. They don't often twist into the wrong direction mid-labor. Like it's kind of like, it's a little weird. But I adapted. I stayed in the moment and I stuck with it. I let go of expectations. I adapted as I went, and the reward was this incredibly intense physical experience and reward of being like, I did it. So that felt like life is twisty, and we adapt. And then my third pregnancy was like so much trust and faith, like being on the couch for 17 weeks. I had to have faith and trust in things that I did not understand, like myself, spirit, my kiddo that I didn't know yet. Like I just had to trust that it would be okay. Trust in my home birth midwives, but then also trust in my medical obstetric care. Trust in the tests. I was in the oncology ward. Like I was everywhere. Nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. I had to trust medicine, but then I also had to trust spirit. And I just persevered. I got through it. And that feels like trust and perseverance were the lessons there. Then I had an abortion. And that pregnancy, I had an IUD in place, I thought. It fell out without me knowing, which is mind-blowing to me.
You're kind of scaring me right now.
I call it my immaculate IUD removal because I'd had an IUD between planned pregnancies. And when they took it out, let me tell you, I was not comfortable.
Yeah.
I was okay with the insertion. I was not okay with the removal. So the fact that this IUD could fall out of my body without me knowing just absolutely to this day blows my mind. I'm the kind of human who I remember, I think it was with my son, so my last birth. I remember watching, maybe it was, I'm off on dates. One of the pregnancies, we were watching Finding Nemo. We were trying to conceive. And I remember saying to whoever was in the room, I think the egg just implanted. Like I felt this twinge and I was like, I'm pregnant. I am now going to have a baby. And I did. Like had labeled myself. I had believed that I was so in tune with my body. Even through everything I'd been through, like I still was holding on to that. And then the immaculate IUD removal happened. So again, just summing up all the lessons coming together, there was a lack of control. There was a twisting and adapting. There was a trust and perseverance. There was the humanness of it all, like things don't work. But what I really learned from that loss was that I can do hard things, because it was very hard for me to choose abortion. I chose it as a lifestyle decision. I was in a healthy marriage, had a roof over my head. Like, finances did come into play. We were not at an excessively abundant, wealthy place, but we could have figured it out. I was supported. I was healthy. Like, there are a lot of reasons I could have kept a pregnancy, but I knew deep down it was not what was supposed to happen. I did not want to have a baby. I was like, I didn't plan for this. I don't want this. I'm done doing this. I'm happy with my family. And so it was the hardest thing I've done, like with my reproductive body, not physically. Like physically, it was very easy, my story. But I learned that I can do hard things, because it was so hard to make that choice, actively say goodbye, and know that two things could be true at the same time, right? Like, this is so sad. I hate that this is happening, and I'm doing the right thing. It's all going to be okay. My reasons for not wanting another pregnancy, for wanting an abortion, are valid and worthy, and they matter, and they're worth the hard things that I'm going to have to do to get there, right? Like, I'm going to have to do this hard thing of having an abortion because of this vision I have for my life that has nothing to do with another child. So I learned that I could do hard things. And then if I extended to the hysterectomy, which is so far my last reproductive journey, but I'm still like in perimenopause, so there's probably more to come. It was very emotional to say goodbye to my uterus. Like, I've been through a lot with me, but there was this letting go and keep going. Like, my uterus has defined me in so many ways on my journey. It's so central to all of my story and my being. And then I was like, and now I have to let it go. And so that was just like a letting go and keep going, and knowing that that felt like it defined me all those years, but it didn't really. It was just the thing I sort of centered my stories around.
I feel you there. Whenever I think about the thought of my uterus leaving my body, I mean, I kind of feel like I want to be just like, hang on to it. Like, no, that's mine. I've been through a lot with that, friend.
Yeah.
It hasn't been always the best, but
Yeah.
That's my friend.
Yeah. Yep. It was very weird. It was very weird. Also, I think that I do have a moderate spiritual belief that everything happens for a reason, but part of that is that we make the reason.
Right.
Like, everything I just told you, someone else could have interpreted all of those births and stories completely differently. I made those reasons because they feel good for me. They do feel true and right, but maybe that's just because I made it up.
Right.
They work for who I am and where I want to go. And I do help people do that work around abortion, is like, we're never really going to know why you went through this or multiple abortions. Many people have multiple, but we can decide together what you want to make it mean.
Yeah.
We can figure that out together. So I think both are true. Everything happens for a reason, and we make the reason.
Also, yeah.
I don't know.
I have some questions that come up for me, and you can either choose to answer or decline to answer, because I don't want to push your boundaries.
I have no boundaries. So.
Okay, cool. So abortion was never part of your plan until it came up. Did you ever think that you would choose that option? Was that something that you ever thought was?
Yeah, I still have some shame and embarrassment around this, because I was very pro-choice, and that's why I used that language earlier of like pro-abortion. Now I feel very pro-abortion. I don't even consider myself pro-choice. I think it needs to exist in the world. Like, there's there's nothing like it'd be
as
like
long as pregnancy is not something you can control.
Yeah,
there needs to be a way to make it safe, to make it. Yeah.
Like, it's also like this false illusion, the choice piece, because so many people come to me and they're like, I didn't have a choice. Like, my relationship was abusive. I was like barely feeding the kids I have. And so I have really wobbly feelings around the choice, because even though it is our choice, like we do get to decide what to do with our bodies, it doesn't always feel like a choice. So it's just very wobbly for me.
Well, it's a choice between two bad options.
Yeah, a lot of times that's the case.
People don't go in and say, you don't wake up in the morning and think, you know what? I would love to have an abortion today. Like, no, that's not how that works. So if you say pro-abortion, you're not like, okay, I'm going to go get a latte, an abortion, and then I'm going to go to Disneyland. That's not how this works.
No.
This is never easy. This isn't people's life goal.
I think sometimes it is easy for people.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of course correcting there. But
I know it's super tricky language, and we've had terrible, there's just not enough people talking about it. So we're all figuring it out together, including me, even though I talk about it all day, every day. It's never not important, is how I would word it.
Yes,
it's always a decision that should be respected, should be, again, language. It's so wonky, but it's a decision that I think we should respect and honor. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's wanted, sometimes it's not wanted. It's just it's really messy. And the pro-choice, pro-life binaries as they exist are excessively messy. Really, really messy. I didn't fit into either camp. But to answer your original question, I would have called myself pro-choice up until age 38 when I got pregnant. Didn't plan it. I would have called myself pro-choice because it was like the label you pick when you're a liberal woman who's in a women's studies major and a feminist and but I didn't understand that didn't tell the whole story until I had an abortion. So I was the person who was pro-choice by language, by intellect, but I also would have told you probably until my mid-30s that I would never choose it.
Yeah.
I was that person, right? I would never have an abortion, but I think it should be accessible for other people. I see now, and I have some shame and embarrassment because I recognize that confidence I had in that language was actually just a lack of awareness. I didn't get it. So it was easy for me to have that touch point. And now I do know, if I could go back now and answer the question, I would say I'm pro-choice and I have no idea what I would do.
Exactly. Yeah. I wanted to
say I'm pro-choice. I would never choose it for myself. So it's it's tricky. There's no right way to talk about this. My entire body of work is let's just talk. Let's be curious. Let's ask a lot of questions. There's no answers in any of this. There's no right way to talk about it, no wrong way to talk about it. But these are all the things I've learned along the way in my story. So I would have said, I've known I wanted to be a mom since I was 4, right?
Since you can remember your brain being active.
That is so much my identity. I love my kids so much. They're all amazing. I love being a mom so much. It's so amazing. My kids are now 19, 17, and 10. I've experienced a lot. It's just too hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that I could love something so much and also reject it. Be no, I say no to this one. So I just didn't get it. And now I get it in a different way.
I want to offer also that you don't want to put your brain through that unless you have to, in thinking about today, last night, I was trying to let my brain go there because I don't like to let my brain go certain places. There's certain experiences that I don't want to pre-live unless I absolutely have to. And that's one of them.
Yeah.
But in doing this podcast, I'm putting myself in a lot of people's situations for the sake of trying to understand. And because I'm a labor nurse, I have patients that go through a lot of these things. And I assist patients through, I have actually on rare occasions because of the laws and the hospital policies and all of that. But on rare occasions, I have given people medications for a medically induced, technically abortion, but because of medical reasons. And that's within the scope of our hospital and our laws in our state. But I have never been a part of an elective abortion where there wasn't a question of the mother's or the baby's safety. So it isn't something that I have to think about on a regular basis, except for now, because in this world, I'm bringing up children where that may be the best, safest, emotionally correct option for someone. And I want, like you said, I want that option to be available for all of the purposes, for all of the reasons that it needs to happen. And it's not my choice for someone else. And also, when you say something like the immaculate removal of an IUD, I am sitting here as a 45-year-old woman thinking, holy crap, that can happen. And also, I have friends who have gotten pregnant with IUDs, and I'm sitting here in this world trying to believe it'll never happen to me and thinking, oh my God, what would I do if I found out I'm pregnant tomorrow? And I don't want to let my brain go any farther because it is so hard for me. And so I completely empathize with that situation for you and what you had to go through, because that is just mind-blowing for me.
My brother had a baby after a vasectomy. So after my abortion, my husband had a vasectomy, and I was still like, I might need a second abortion. I don't know. Like, there's just no guarantees here.
Right.
Now I am quite confident that without a uterus, I will never have.
I hope not.
There's
because you're blowing my mind with the things that can happen right now, and just because I can't wrap my head around it doesn't mean
but that's the thing, is like, I actually wrote like 40,000 words of a memoir after, and I do have a published book, but it's a book of poems, and I'm writing another book now, like now that I've been in this work for so long. But I remember writing in that memoir being like, there was a confidence I had in, like, I understand how to prevent a pregnancy. Like, I'm just that smart, and I'm that lucky and privileged.
Or maybe it just seems simpler than it.
Yeah,
it really is.
I mean, I wasn't thinking that then. I wasn't thinking I'm so smart and privileged. But I look back now and I'm like, oh yeah, it's like you didn't think it would happen to you, and it did. And so like, there was just like a righteousness about me that I'm not proud of now when I look back, but like I thought I was like in control. I guess I hadn't completely let go of that lack of control lesson I learned in birth number 1.
Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to think that. Nobody wants to think that it's possible.
But I think now, actually, I chose abortion at 38 because I just was so done having babies. That's it. That's like why. Like, I didn't want sleepless nights again. I didn't want breastfeeding again. I didn't want all of it. But I think now, like, and now we've had a vasectomy. We've had a hysterectomy. We're not going to have a baby. Guess what? I have 2 teenage girls. And if they got pregnant and said, I hope they're not listening to this. No, it's okay. We talk about everything anyway. But like, if they got pregnant and said, Mom, I can't do it. Like, I can't have an abortion. Like, I have to have this baby. And then they wanted me to take care of the baby. Guess what I would do? I'd show up to the sleepless nights. And maybe I wouldn't. Because again, I'm projecting something I think I would do. But like, there's no guarantees in life. I don't know what's going to happen next. And like, I might end up taking care of an infant again. I pray that I will not have to do that. And I don't want my kids to go through that. But like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like,
well, you won't breastfeed again. There's that. I can tell you that.
It's just, I don't know though. Could I lactate again if
I mean, you could probably, like, we could go down that rabbit hole.
Ovaries,
you could take your you could take hormones, and you could it's possible. It's probably not going to be efficient. You would have to supplement with formula. It would be
do you see what I'm saying? It's like, you can plan and plan and plan, and like, someone could say to me, like, well, you definitely won't have to raise an infant again because you have no uterus. Your husband has no, like, sperm ejection. Like, it's not going to happen. But that's not even true.
That's not.
That's not even true. And even, like, if it weren't my own kid, like, if my niece Again, like, please don't listen to this and send me rabies because
Right.
I don't want rabies. But let's just say, like, if my niece or, you know, my whatever, somebody I really love and care about, like, I might end up taking care of babies again.
You would step up for somebody you love.
We don't know. Like, so that's such an important lesson there to be like, we don't know how our births are going to happen.
Right.
We don't know how our families are going to grow. We don't know how our postpartum is going to happen. We don't know how our parenting is going to go. Abortion is just, it's this opportunity to talk about a lot of stuff that has to do with a lot of life.
Yeah.
In a very raw, activated, vulnerable way. And like you said, we don't go there because who wants to go there? But everything that has anything to do with abortion is about all of life. The biggest thing I faced in choosing abortion was death and power, my own power. I could choose to take this language.
Yeah.
You might be like, I'm not releasing this podcast.
Nope, I am, because it's an important conversation that we need to have.
I call it a baby. Like, I call it life.
Okay.
There's no way, being who I am, that I could say I terminated fetal cells. I was like 6 or 7 weeks. So, I mean, we're talking like, if you look at science, this is just a pile of cells.
But it meant more to you.
When that egg implanted in my uterus, it was barely a pile of cells. And I was like, I'm a mom, I'm pregnant. There's no way I could then be like, I aborted a pile of cells. Like, no, like I chose to terminate the life of a baby. But I don't mean like a cute little baby with arms and legs. I mean like energetically, soulfully, spiritually, like I called it a baby then. I can't not call it a baby now. That language doesn't work for me. So what I had to do was come to terms with saying no to life.
Yeah.
I had to come to terms with literally ending life in my own body. It's mind-blowing. So I had to face life and death and my own power in a way that I never could have anticipated.
Yeah.
Ever, ever, ever. And there's so many people who are like, what is she talking about? This is crazy. Someone stop her. But I think what's missing in the pro-life, pro-choice rhetoric is that we can't just call it healthcare and tissue. And we can't call it human life. It is the potential of life. And so there is like living tissue there. I can call it a baby because spiritually, emotionally, mentally, it was a baby to me, but physically it was just not. We have to find this middle place. And the current social dialogue about abortion is so binary.
Yeah.
It's all black or white. And when you're in the lived experience, it's anything but black or white. It's a big pile of messy thoughts and feelings. And we have to be willing to sit with all that confusion and mess and lack of clarity and lack of knowing and lack of control to be able to feel good about our decisions. I feel really good about my decision. I love that I made this choice for myself and my family. And there was a ton of grief.
Yeah.
There was, am I a good mom guilt? There was shame that I got pregnant and I didn't mean to. There was like, I had all the feelings. There was no clarity here. There was no like this or that. Kill it or keep it. That was not the conversation. It was so much more complex than that. And what I hope in my work is that I make more room for that conversation, because when we pick these really black and white binaries as the way that we talk about abortion, we're causing so much harm. It's a lot easier to create a law about people's bodies when we call it murder.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder when we say this is a very sad and hard decision I made in the best interest of my family and I can't even say that, in the hope of the best interest for my family, because I also had to come to terms with, I might wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah, you don't have a crystal ball. You thought you were making the right decision at the time. You stand by that right now.
Yeah.
But nobody has a crystal ball. And I thought about something last night in thinking about just trying to come up with analogies or just really considering what we ask of people who are able to give birth.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you talked about if your daughter or niece got pregnant and they didn't want that in their life at the time, you would gladly, if they didn't want to have an abortion, they wanted that baby, but they weren't able to fully put in all of the time and everything that needs to happen to take care of it, you would gladly step up and help.
Oh, and not gladly.
Okay, you would.
But I can guess now that I would probably. And be
that would be
really amazing guardian.
On the table. Because nothing is black and white. This is gray. This is all hypothetical.
I know.
Okay. Well, here's what we can't do. Okay. You could do that, but you cannot remove the experience of pregnancy and birth from them.
Be like, I will grow your baby for you.
Yes. Unless, here we go. And this is where all of these laws and all this nonsense is coming into play. Yeah. Unless you have the cells frozen and then you choose, right? They were never inside the body. Okay. They were always outside, or they actually were inside the body at some point because we took them out. Then we put them together, and then we're going to re-put them inside of a body. So what's the difference? Do you know what I'm saying? Choosing to have that life, whatever, or cells, or potential life, choosing to allow it to grow outside the body, inside the body. If it's already inside your body and implanted, we don't currently have the option to remove it and put it into somebody else's body. So you're forcing pregnancy on someone who doesn't want it by taking away the option.
It's terrifying to think that could, like, if I had been pregnant at 38 and we had that capacity, we had that technology, that is even more terrifying to think someone could have taken that pregnancy from me and then grown it themselves because they were in, I mean, that's another form of it. There's so much. Like, I hate the Handmaid's Tale analogy because it takes away from our real lived experience, but it's getting more and more terrifying because, like, I mean, that's like, right? So that would have been, I just can't even imagine.
The solutions to the problem are just as terrifying as the problem. Yeah. There is no good solution. So, yes, if you had someone that you were okay with taking that pregnancy and growing it for you, that'd be one thing. But if you don't have that, or if you don't want that, or, there's just so much. There's so much there. I thought
about this too when I was pregnant, because a lot of people will say, just give it up for adoption. There's plenty of people who want babies.
Yes.
And that's a really hard conversation that I have not had a lot. As a mother, the idea of stopping tissue that was not viable was something I could wrap my head around.
But giving up a child that is.
Of someone else raising my kid's sibling, my flesh and blood, was not a hard I was willing to face. I was willing to face and feel the feels of stopping the developmental growth of a bunch of tissue. That was a hard I was willing to deal with. I'm going to be sad. People are going to judge me. Not everyone will understand. I might regret it. I'm going to have to convince myself I'm a good mom again. Like, I was ready for all that hard. You couldn't have paid me $1 billion to grow that baby and give it to someone else. I would have rather died. That doesn't mean someone else can't do it.
Right.
And I would fully support them doing it. It's just like, being human is so unique to each of us and so messy. I don't have to explain to you why I could do one hard and not a different hard. Like, someone else will be like, well, if you could do that, then if you could feel that, then you could feel this. It's like, I don't have to tell you why that was my line. That was my line. I was not willing to do that hard.
Well, and it's not like you had a whole lot of time to deal with that decision, to make You have to make the decision.
I mean, there's a million ways I could justify my abortion. Like sometimes people want to use my bed rest story, right? Oh, I can see why you wouldn't want to have another pregnancy. You spent 17 weeks on bed rest. It's like, yeah, it did factor in. It was a part of my human experience, but that's not why I chose not to be pregnant. Yes, it was a piece of it, but ultimately that wasn't the thing. And that's just the thing is like when we're healing from anything, birth trauma, abortion trauma, parenting trauma, marriage trauma, any of it, it's never about getting to the place where someone else is at in their story. It's about understanding your heart and having your own back around why you made the decisions you made. I have to understand and heal my story, not someone else's, not like, oh man, there's so many people I don't want to listen to this episode, but they probably will. So if my mom's listening, I love you to pieces. But I had a birthday 2 days ago and I was like really not okay. I was actually worried about my safety at one point, and I'm not a person who struggles with depression. But like, I was not okay. My mom really loves me so much and like came over and gave me a card and wanted to make me feel better because she's my mom. And she said like, you have a good life. You shouldn't be so sad. It's not how it works. Like,
no.
And I know she didn't mean it in that way, but we can't look at someone else's pregnancy and be like, you have a good life. You should have a baby. It doesn't work that way. Like you can't understand someone else's experience through your lens. So when I work with people as a coach, it's not about me or anyone else. It's about helping them figure out their unique experience and having their own back and being curious and compassionate about what they decided to do and why. Some of my clients even regret their abortions, but they're at peace with regretting their abortions. That's okay too. Like a lot of people regret their marriage.
Yeah.
Like it's not, we're capable of regretting decisions we've made and being okay. But when we compare ourselves to other people or their ideals or their values or their stories, then it's impossible. It's just impossible.
Yeah, it is. Well, and another thing that came up for me, and this, again, is not the whole story, is you only have so much time to make that decision. You don't know if you're going to regret it. Yeah. If you had the rest of your life to decide what to do about that pregnancy.
And that was my hard line, right? Was like, I wasn't going to give myself 6 more weeks to decide. I wasn't going to give myself 10 more weeks to decide. Certainly wasn't going to give myself 12 more weeks to decide. But I also will love and support someone who's had an abortion at 24 weeks because of whatever their reasons are. Like, I just knew with my circumstances, waiting was not the answer. With my circumstances, deciding when I decided was the answer. There is, for a lot of us, there is a time crunch that makes this very complicated. We're not thinking. A lot of people will say to me, like, I don't know who that was who did that. It was like the whole thing. I don't know. I wasn't thinking straight. That wasn't me. And I get that. I get that we can look back because there is a time crunch for many of us. It's a social construct it's a mental social construct that we've put on ourselves. But it's real, like it matters. So everyone's is different. Like some people wouldn't even think twice between 12 weeks and 5 weeks. Some people are like, oh, once you get to 13 weeks, absolutely not. But that's all made up. Everyone made up their own numbers.
Comfort zones. Yeah.
So, but you're right. One of the hardest things that I see people struggle with is like having felt the pressure of time.
Yeah. Well, because that's part of your comfort zone with the decision.
Yeah.
When does
sometimes that's a moral value thing.
Right.
And then sometimes that's like the state I live in.
Also,
amount I have to travel to get this, to make this happen. How quickly they can mail the pills to me. There's a million reasons that impact time. But yeah, it is a huge, and if you come to like the definition of trauma, one of it being too fast, that can be the only reason there's trauma, is that I had to decide too quickly. Not that I made the wrong decision, but that I'm still processing how fast I had to decide.
Yeah.
So it's just all really messy.
It is. Yeah. And it's so complex. There's so much that goes into it. There's so many things to consider to be able to just rip the carpet out from under someone and say, just no, we're going to take away that option. I mean, we're talking about life either way. You're taking away life either way.
It's absolutely terrifying. And it's like, let's eliminate this sadness
in order to create so much
more. In order
more.
to create exactly what you just said. No one is willing to look at the trauma they're causing by forcing someone to carry a pregnancy, have another child. They're only willing to look at what they think is trauma they're avoiding, right? Is like the loss of a human life. I've had people write pro-life articles about me saying she was sad. That's exactly why we shouldn't let abortion exist. We can't have all these sad people. Like,
we already do. Reality check. We already do.
Really
I
bad.
mean,
It's really
well, everybody gets to choose their hard. Everybody gets to choose their sad.
bad.
And also, we are not eliminating the elimination of life by eliminating abortion, because abortion is something that, in some cases, saves lives. And there are times when both the baby and the mom are at risk, and we don't know whose life we're saving, but there's one way that is going to increase the potential for one life to be saved. And usually that's the mom.
And what are we saving, though? All we're saving is a physical body. Because this isn't even, like, you think abortion is a stigma topic. I think parenting, raising children I didn't want is maybe the most stigmatized topic that exists. There are so many living, breathing human beings who wish they didn't have children and do. They might still love their children.
Yeah.
And take care of their children. But ultimately, it is, I think, maybe the greatest stigma to say, I wish I hadn't had that third baby. So when we talk about saving lives, there's the physical piece of that, but then there's I had that third baby and like I mentally, emotionally couldn't cope anymore. I shut down. I stayed in my room. My depression got worse. My anxiety got worse. I couldn't figure out how to take care of all the children. There's so many levels of saving life that we're not talking about. And to prioritize a physical body is just nonsense to me. Just because someone's alive doesn't mean you did right by them.
Right. I feel like there's so much that's still coming up for me. And there's just so many parts of this conversation that I guess the most important thing is to just continue the conversation, that it continues to be part of the conversation, because I think that what happens is we're so afraid to bring up those complexities. And just as an example, you keep saying that there's things that you want to edit out or that you don't want people to hear. And I'm thinking the same thing when I say certain things. I'm just like, that's not the word I wanted to use. And so I guess my challenge for myself is when editing this episode, leave those words in, because we have to hear how hard it is to talk about things that are so complex.
Yeah. I think it all has to stay in the conversation. And we're such an editing society that we don't know how to, like, there's probably a program out there that could have put an L&D nurse and a mom of 3 on AI and created a podcast episode.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know what it would have said, but like, I say this at the end of most of my podcast episodes, is like, all I want to be is an example of how to talk about it and not have all the answers. Still challenge your own beliefs, challenge each other's beliefs. The talking about it, even when you don't get it right, is the most valuable part. And the scary part about living as a human in 2024 is that people will take one little thing and they'll run away with it on the internet, and then they'll use it against you, cancel you, use it against abortion access. Like, all of that just is a reality that's awful. And it makes us want to shut down, but that's what they want us to do, is to shut down, shut up, and step away. And like, we have to be brave enough to like say the hard things in the messy ways, because it's the only thing that's going to save us all.
Yeah.
I don't think we should edit anything out. It's I applaud you for having the conversation, because it's big. It's
well,
big.
I thank you for having it with me. And I feel like after processing it, I'm going to have lots of questions, and probably we should have another conversation at a later date. There's so much more. I feel like we just scratched the surface.
I'm sure listeners have questions too. Like, I'm happy to come back and answer more questions, not because I have the answer, but I'm happy to come back and talk about more ways to answer questions.
Yeah. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on with me and for the brave work that you do.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's definitely an honor. It's hard and weird, and I want to run away from it a lot, but I'm not.
Good.
I'm here.
Thank you so much for tuning into my podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future episodes. Don't forget to share the podcast with a friend who can benefit from the valuable insights that we share here. And if you could take a moment to leave a 5-star rating and review, it would mean the world to me. If you're ready to work one-on-one with me to embark on a transformational journey towards a confident and empowered hospital birth experience, go to kellyhoff.com/empowered and enroll in my Empowered Hospital Birth Coaching Program. Together, we'll create a roadmap to a birth experience that you'll cherish forever. That's KELLYHOF.com/empowered. Let's make your birth experience extraordinary.